Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Prachachandana Yashodanandana Jasodhanandana Prachachandana Yashodanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jasodhanandana Prachachandana Jasodhanandana Prachachandana Jasodhanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 This evening, I'm 2 hours different than 1 hour different than you, right?
1 hour behind.
1 hour different. But the verse from Bhagavad-gita this evening is chapter 1, text 31. And I have the option of going a little bit further, so I will exercise that option. We're going to hear Arjuna talk some Maya. He's being placed in Maya, or the deluding potency of Krishna, but it's a high sounding Maya. It sounds really convincing to a moralist. A little bit of a background, because it's important with these particular verses. During the time that Bhagavad-gita took place, and particularly the Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthira, they're followers of the codes of Dharma. Codes of Dharma means the duties of an individual according to their position within society. Their psychophysical nature determines their duty. And one of the elements for each of the various occupations or varnas is how you maintain yourself financially. And without going through the whole picture, the means for maintenance for a Kshatriya is protecting. And for those who one is protecting, then there's some taxes based on protection. So going back in time, the The Pandavas were the rightful heirs of the entire kingdom. But Krishna made, on their request, he made a peace proposal. By the laws of mankind, by the laws of Manu, the Pandavas are the rightful heirs of the kingdom. But you know what? You can rule the kingdom. And the kingdom means the whole world. But because they're Kshatriyas, the Pandavas are Kshatriyas, they have to have some means of maintenance, and their means of maintenance is to rule. So give them, out of the whole world, give them 5 states, and they'll be subordinate to you, and they'll rule under you. You'll be the big emperor, and they'll be little rulers under the big emperor. And that offer was declined. So if not 5 states, then 5 cities. If not 5 cities, then 5 villages. And 3 strikes and you're out. Duryodhana declared, it's them or me. I can't live on the same planet with the Pandavas. They'll die or I'll die. There must be war. So the battle was over who would be the king or the emperor of the world, with pretty high stakes. And what we're going to be discussing this evening is Arjun is back to, well, you know what? I'll just stop being a Kshatriya. I'm going to renounce, in the Sanskrit terminology, it's karma sannyas. I'm going to renounce my duties. And I'll take up the duties of a mendicant, and I'll just stop being a Kshatriya. And because, then he gives his reasons why he's contemplating like that. And that's what we're discussing. And it's centered around the means of maintenance, or which at least the specific aspect of the function of a Kshatriya. And in one of those topics that we'll hear about shortly, when Kshatriyas have at it, as history shows, war or battle between ruling parties does take place. There's dharma yuddha, or religious fighting. Yuddha means fighting, and dharma, religious fighting, dharma yuddha. There's religious grounds for fighting, and then there's otherwise. And when there's religious fighting, if someone on the right cause engages in religious fighting, we're going to hear there's a destination for them. If they lose, that is, if they die on the battlefield fighting a religious cause, according to Dharma Shastras, they attain the planet of the sun. They attain a heavenly destination, specifically the sun planet. And those that win, they get the kingdom. But if the fighting is not a religious fight, then that person who engages in fighting, even they win, their destination is hell. So essentially that was one of the points made in, I guess, last week's verse, which was 1.30 or 30, and that is Nimitani Vipatani, the Sanskrit language we're not so much used to. Viparitani. Nimitani Viparitani. Nimitani cha pashyami. Pashyami is see. When I look at the outcome of this, I see the opposite. That is, when one does something, generally one expects there's going to be happiness. But viparitani, I see the opposite. I see sorrow. I see sadness. I see great disappointment. I don't see the happiness, so I'm not inspired. The example is given by the commentary and our acharyas. Supposing you're not well, or supposing you're just not hungry. You're not like very enthusiastic to go into the kitchen and start cooking because you're not hungry. Or if even somebody else wants to go in the kitchen and do some cooking, it's not really, you're not so enthusiastic about it. So Arjuna is similarly, it's one of his reasons for not wanting to go through with the battle is he sees the opposite of happiness as the outcome. And then in text 31, which is our verse for this evening, I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Now, in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he addresses a core consideration for spiritual life, and that is, what's the standard of happiness? Of course, irreligious people don't consider anything beyond senses, content, exact sense objects, and there's a little buzz called happiness, and that's what happiness is. Senses contacting sense objects that you like. And of course, then there's sense objects you don't like, and that's unhappiness or distress. But the spiritual consideration is not self-centered or sense-centered, it's Krishna-centered. He's not asking, what does Krishna want? He's letting Krishna know, this is not what I want. Because what I want, if I want victory, if I engage in this battle, I don't want rulership, because if I gain rulership, who would I want to enjoy the kingdom with? It's everybody that's on the other side of the battlefield. When we have, let's just go to 32 through 35. He lists the people that he would want to be the enjoyer of the kingdom with. O Govinda, of what avail to us is a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arraigned on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will be derived from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? So it's the bottom line is my pleasure. And my pleasure is whatever wealth or kingdom or attainment I may achieve. I would want to have those things and enjoy in the company of others who are close to me, friends, relatives, and the whole list again. This is my enjoyment, is my senses reaching a sense object, and then once I have that sense object, to enjoy happiness with those who are close to me, my own men, mine, my group. But my group is on the other side. If the battle goes forward, those who I would want to be the enjoyer with will be dead. So what's to be gained? And even if what's to be gained is ruling the three worlds. Three worlds means the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. The heavenly realm, the earthly realm, and the lower realm. If I could be the ruler of all those, just by winning this battle, I still wouldn't want to win, but to speak of ruling earth. Because who would I want to enjoy with? All the people that are on the other side. It's my own then, it's a self-centered consideration of what happiness is. I and mine. The extended sense of selfishness is my group of people. And it's not a new idea. My group of people is my family, my culture, my nation. And it's not a new thing. I mean, how it plays out changes in the course of time. But groupism and fighting from one group to another group, or one religion, even within one religious sect, and within the same religion, another religious sect, fighting and fighting. I know a little bit, not too much, but I know a little bit about fighting in Ireland between the Protestants and the Catholics. It's not just like they disagree, it's bloodshed. Or I don't understand at all about what goes on between this group of Muslims and that group of Muslims, but it's bloodshed. It's deadly. What to speak of others that are other than their particular brand of Muslim faith, and on and on and on and on and on. You know, the alignment towards war in our modern context doesn't take much brain power to see what's going on. People are preparing for major war. And as they're preparing, surely something's going to happen, and it's not going to be pretty. So what's to be gained? And a moralist, the message that Arjuna is speaking sounds laudable. Like, I don't want to be a participant in this bloodshed. I don't want to be participant in fratricidal war. One family group against the other family group because of what? Because of wealth and kingdom and power. I don't want to do this. Better that I just become a mendicant. I stop being a Kshatriya and maintain myself in a different way. Just live like an ascetic. Go to the forest and live an ascetic life. For reasons of, I'm not going to be an enjoyer. I see, instead of happiness, nimittani viparitani, I see the opposite. I see great sorrow. In Bhagavad Vidyabusan's commentary, this is how he expresses it. From text 30, he's lamenting in such a way that understanding transcendence, or that which is eternal, is covered because of his lamentation. And in this text 30, it's his polluted intelligence that's covering his ability to understand transcendence. What's lost in this whole picture is who he really is, the soul, and who Krishna really is, the enjoyer of everything. So who is the enjoyer of everything? That's a good question. And spiritual life says that which is the source of everything is meant to be the enjoyer of everything. The proprietorship question, what does everything belong to? And whatever that something is that it belongs to, then who it belongs to is meant to be the enjoyer of that something. If we find out, use this little example that Prabhupada would give sometimes. Supposing you're walking along the street and you find a $10 bill on the street. And one thing to do is just walk on by because it's not yours. So you're detached because it's someone else's. Another is $10 bill lying on the street. Nobody's looking, doesn't seem to belong to anybody. So you pick it up and put it in your pocket and now it's yours. And then a third option, not so realistic these days, but find out who dropped the $10 bill. Like I had this experience once when traveling. I deplaned and came out of the gate and was entering into the terminal. And as I was walking along underneath a row of seats, I saw a wallet sitting underneath the seat. It was a big fat wallet that had credit cards and money and stuff. So I immediately thought of this point that Prabhupada made. Leave it, somebody may come back to claim it. Or somebody lost it, so now it's mine. Or try to return it back to the owner. You know, I in retrospect, I made a mistake. What I did was I took it to the check-in counter ladies, you know, the gate agent ladies, and said, I found this, please return it to its owner. There were two of them, and I could only imagine later they started counting how much was there and divided it up. I don't know what they did with it. I could have, seen the credit cards and find out who it belongs to and make sure they get it back. But that's a good thing to do. If something belongs to someone, then they should be the enjoyer of that something, not me or just nothing. Make it zero. So take that picture and make it a really big picture. What does everything belong to? Everything belongs to that which is the source of that everything. And if you can find out the source of everything, that's a little bit of a challenge. But when you find out what the source of everything is, then you return that to the source, whatever it is, back to the source. It's meant to be used in the service of the source of that thing. The proprietor is the one who's the source. Things are to be used in service to Krishna. Yesterday evening, there was just a little sharing. There was a discussion with a group of students from Singapore and US, National University of Singapore, the most prestigious university in Singapore. And one of the questions in their question answer session was, what's the standard of renunciation? They gave some story about someone, as far as they know, that someone has a misconception of what renunciation is. And how do you help those people? So the right consideration of renunciation is recognize who is the proprietor of things, and you use things in the service of the proprietor of things. And for service to the proprietor of things, you accept those things which are appropriate for you, your quota, to accept and utilize in service to the source of everything. And that's the standard of renunciation. Without Anasaktasya Vishayan, without attachment to Vishaya, enjoyment. But supposing there's attachment to enjoyment, that's what Arjuna is exhibiting. He's a religious man, but he's attached to the idea of being the enjoyer. In the previous verse, there's this nice reference to one of my favorite verses in Bhagavatam, and that is fear arises from absorption in the temporary. You can look in the previous purport and look up the verse. Fear, because Arjuna, considering what was in front of him, two things. His mind was spinning. He was practically going to keel over. He was in such a state of anxiety. He was about to faint. He's a great hero. He's about to faint. Dizzy with this great anxiety over what's about to happen. This huge battle, and he's a major player in it. And he not just has cold feet, but he has a lot of high-sounding, non-violent, self-centered contemplations. Forgetful of who he is, forgetful of who Krishna is. But he has regard for Krishna because they're dearmost friends. And so he's presenting this before his dear friend Krishna. Now, in higher consciousness, he knows who Krishna is. He knows he's the supreme. But he has this mix of very strong affection and friendship with Krishna. And so he's just presenting this dilemma to his good friend. And they're having a friendly conversation. I don't know what is best for me. And I'm thinking what's best for me is I'm out of here. This is ghastly. It isn't going to bring happiness. Better if I was killed unarmed. Because if I was killed unarmed, then I know for sure I have faith in the scripture. The scripture says at least I'll attain heaven. Specifically, the planet Sun. I'll attain the heavenly kingdom. But if I fight, and it's not on a religious basis, it's on a selfish basis, then it's sinful. And even I win, I lose. If I lose, I lose. And if I win, I lose. So I'm out of here. That's his self-centered argument. I've heard Prabhupada lecture on this, so I'll just mention and we'll see if there's some discussion. One of the terms that he uses to address Krishna is Madhusudana. Madhusudana refers to Krishna, who's the killer of the Madhu demon. And Krishna, you killed the Madhu demon. And over here on this side, there's my father, my grandfather. In the absence of my father, he raised me like father. So I have affection for him and he has affection for me like father and son. And you want me to kill him? And over there is my teacher. And everything I know about military skill, I learned from my teacher, Drona Acharya. And over there's my cousins, and so forth and so on. It's so many personalities who are dear to me, and I owe regard and respect and reverence to. And if I engage in battle with those personalities, how ungrateful, how sinful. You're Madhusudana, but I am being asked to do something that's sinful. It's his consideration, his calculation. and therefore I can't go forward. And if you say, well, Duryodhana should be killed, everyone else you can spare, that's fine, but Duryodhana is, he by laws of Manu, he deserves to be punished. He's an aggressor. He's dutifully to be punished. But well, supposing he is killed and his 99 brothers, then our gains will be tainted or with blood, and we don't want to see them dead, although they want to see us dead. Better they kill us. And if I drop my arms and they kill me unarmed, that's better than if I engage in this ghastly warfare. So he's going on with nonviolent talk and seemingly elevated sentiment talk, completely forgetful of who he is on the spiritual platform and who Krishna is on the spiritual platform. That is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the one who is to be pleased by our activities and our duties of life. Is all mixed up, but high sounding mixed up. And after he finishes, then Krishna is going to respond in strong language. So let's see if there's some discussion. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't read the verse and purport. Maybe I should do that. Text 30, 1. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Purport. Without knowing that one's self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such situations. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the causes of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a Kshatriya. It is said that two kinds of men, namely the Kshatriya who dies on the battlefront and the person in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun globe, which is so powerful and dazzling. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsmen, there will be no happiness in this life, and therefore he is not willing to fight, just as a person who does not feel hunger is not inclined to cook. He has now decided to go into the forest and live a secluded life in frustration. But as a Kshatriya, he requires a kingdom for his subsistence because the Kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. But Arjuna has no kingdom. Arjuna's sole responsibility, opportunity for gaining a kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from their father, his father, which he does not like to do. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest and live in a secluded life of frustration. Not a good plan. Krishna doesn't approve. So let's see if there's some discussion from our members who are present. And the way that it works, as far as I understand, is when you speak, your image will show on the screen. I guess they have to be unmuted, though. Whoever is in charge of unmuting people.
Yes, Sasha can unmute them, or they can unmute themselves if they want to ask a question. So please go ahead, anyone who likes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj,
Hare Krishna.
my humble obeisances. Maharaj, you mentioned that in an irreligious war, the winners go to hell. What about the losers of such an irreligious war? Where do they go? They also go to the sun planet? Or hell?
I'm thinking, well, irreligious, win or lose, where's the destination? I guess it depends upon the degree of irreligiousness, but it seemed like the destination would be the same. Beware of irreligion. It doesn't lead to a good place. Win or lose.
All right, Hare Krishna. What happens? I'm aware that a couple devotees here and there over the years have been members of the military of their country that they're from, and I'm wondering what happens for a devotee who has a position in the military country. So he's doing his duty in that position, but then presumably most wars today, the countries that engage in them, let's assume that it's not always the case maybe, but let's assume that the war engaged by the country is not done according to Dharma. So what's the status for that devotee who is doing his duty in the military?
They're accruing karma. That's the status. And it's not only military, it's etc. What occupation is dharmic in our modern society? But there are some that are in that category. It's good karma. Let's just, let's say somebody that works in a non-veg and a veg restaurant. So there's different karma, but there's karma depending upon the details. So modern warfare or modern military service is karmic. So what to do?
Would
Now,
that
there are occupations like I know somebody that was in the military that was in the medical corps. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what Tulsi Gabbard was in, the medical corps of military. So I don't know if there's karma involved in being it. What she was doing, because of the consciousness that she was carrying, was she was doing this in service to Krishna, which she's trying to continue to use in service to Krishna, even in the dirty arena of politics. But the activity itself, the medical corps field, has its, one can imagine at least, a higher karma than the other kinds of activities that military engages in. But the dedication of service to Krishna makes all the difference. So aside from Tulsi Gabbard and devotees that are in medical corps division of the military, there's karma involved, although they're devotees. It's like the example Prabhupada gives, as far as I understand it, it's like the elephant that takes a bath and then comes to the shore and throws dirt. There's karma involved in such occupation. That's my understanding anyway.
I have a question. What happened to the country? What happened to the area or the country after the war? Because they had to, they had to break away with the clannishness. He had to break away with clannishness, and and I see this as a general solution more than being Arjuna's fate. And what happened to the country? Did they succeed? Did they?
You mean the land or the people after war?
Well, what happened to Arjuna? What happened to the country? To the area? To
the land.
To the land.
Okay, what happened to the land after a war? Like, it gets flattened.
It gets what?
Flattened. I mean, it gets devastated after a war.
Somebody wins the war. Somebody has to succeed. Who succeeded, and who and what happened? Was there like a resurgence of religion?
I'm not sure what your question is. There's devastation. War brings devastation, and after the war, there's cleanup the devastation. So I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you clear what you're asking?
Yes. I mean, let's say Arjuna won the war. Was this, the principle, was the religion is kind of strengthened by the war in a sense, because now Arjuna is in charge of the land.
Yeah, it was his brother, but I get the picture. So they had a big funeral, and the dead soldiers they had their funeral rites performed, and then there was a coronation ceremony, and Yudhishthira became the next king, and then they ruled with whoever was left, and they ruled by religious principle. Now that's what they did with the people, and with the land, it was a mess. So it had to become restored. However, people after wars restore land, I don't know, but there must be some procedure followed after war. The war took place on a particular battlefield. It wasn't like modern war. It was on a battlefield, and so the battlefield then had to be whatever you do with battlefields, do landscape.
Was there a resurgence of religion?
Well, there was worship there was various forms of worship, and those various forms of worship were, according to scripture, they were upheld, and people were encouraged to take up their appropriate form of worship. But that's worship is not exactly the first part of your question. What happened to the land? The land had to be restored back to a non-war zone land. It wasn't big bombs like the modern warfare, rebuilding buildings and roads and bridges and everything, homes. This was a battlefield, but it was devastated, and so making it, I don't know, landscaped, making it back to normal.
Like I say, so we see really the devastation of, the wars are kind of not a good thing. So,
No, war's not a good thing.
So we were talking about Arjuna being an ego because he thinks of my family, my clan, and he kind of forgets the spirituality, and
He was
But yet
kind of
we
what?
have the results of this in his devastation.
Your voice is not
Your voice is not clear. That's part of the problem. The question is complex. That's part of the problem. But your voice is not clear. That's another big part of the problem. Amani Vedana, can you understand everything she's saying?
Well, yes.
Not 100%. Susan, can I ask something and you tell me if I have it right?
Yes.
Are you wondering if Arjuna is by his engaging in the war, by his if to the extent he engages in the war, that's if he does so, then that's to support sort of his non-spiritual or egotistical sense of things because it causes devastation. Is that what you're asking, kind of?
No, I think that he refuses because he doesn't want to kill his family. But then we see that the war is it devastates the land, and so how can we say that he's
I
being
understand.
selfish and he's being and that he forgets his spiritual nature when we are seeing that the whole thing is really not favorable to a certain area or to a big area, whatever.
Romapada Swami, is my clarification for a few more seconds helpful, or you got it?
Oh yeah, because the sound on this end. I mean, there's a few of us in the room.
Uh-huh.
Not only my ears, but the other ears. They're looking at each other and shrugging their shoulders. So if you can make some clarity out of this, that'll be great.
Okay.
I think I have it. I think I have it now. So it's basically Arjuna is basically being dissuaded from following by Krishna, dissuaded from following his different sort of contemplations that are based on material sentiment, worrying about if you're going to have any friends left to enjoy with if and once you win the war, etc. And yet, how do you reconcile Krishna's persuading him to engage in the war when the result of the war is that there's going to be devastation? Why is that a good thing? And of course, in the modern world, some of the examples we were discussing, war is a bad thing. So I think there may be some sort of doubt that how is it a good thing that Krishna engages in the war? I mean, that Arjuna engages in the war for Krishna's guidance.
Susan, is that it?
I took some notes, yes, and
Did he get the question right?
yes. I mean, considering the outcome of devastation, I don't think that Arjuna was so wrong in not wanting to fight.
Okay, got it.
I mean,
I
it
think I got
feels, that he has fears and arises from attachment to the temporary. And, and then I'm asking you, did the religion came up, the country enjoyed, or the country became more spiritual, and then, and things of the nature, and his, and you talk about the source is the enjoyer of things. So this was done for Krishna's pleasure also. It wasn't done because Arjuna wanted it.
Right. You got it. You got it. So why did Krishna want something that had a very unpleasant outcome? Could you please explain? Krishna must have known there's going to be a devastating outcome. Why was he encouraging Arjuna to get over his selfishness to do something that's going to have a devastating outcome? Why did Krishna do that? Doesn't seem right to me. So let's step back. If that's, at least directionally, maybe not all the details of your question, but directionally, that's kind of like what your question is. So let's step back and take a look at the purpose of creation. That's like way back. What's the purpose of God's creation? Or what's the purpose of our life as humans that are part of God's creation? What's our purpose, and what does Krishna want for each of us, you and me and the people on the battlefield and everybody else in history? What's the purpose of our being here? Why is there creation? And the purpose is to restore our dormant, eternal spiritual connection with the source of everything. That's the purpose. There's lessons to be learned along the way, like live in harmony with nature and live in harmony with God and the laws of God, and that'll help you get to that destination. But then there are persons that do something else. They go the opposite direction. And those people that go in the opposite direction, Krishna wanted to liberate them. Krishna want the people on the battlefield that lost their lives. The soul became liberated in the presence of Krishna. Krishna wanted to free them from that implication and their wrong deeds that were making a mess of things by liberating them. But the path of liberation for such people that go in that direction is Krishna's intervention, and he liberates them. So that's what Krishna wanted. And there were unpleasant experiences along the way, and so forth, and moralistic reasons why in normal circumstances you don't want such activity because there's devastating consequences. From a moralistic point of view, that's the right picture. And from the picture of what the purpose of creation is, Krishna wanted to liberate them, and he did. And if Arjuna had not agreed, then Krishna explained later, they're going to be liberated anyways. I've already decided. It's a done deal. You can be the instrument or not, that's your choice. But I want to free them from the implication they presently are very deeply involved with in sinful lives. And, activities that again and again, multiple death penalty punishable crimes, without listing what those were. These are persons that I, Krishna, have appeared on earth to relieve the earth of the burden of these people. And not just, get rid of the bad people, but liberate them. Liberate them. Not just get them out of the way so they stop disturbing the lives of good people, but to liberate them. That was Krishna's intention. So, yes, devastating effects. Yes, ultimate good effects for the law-abiding people, the living within the laws of nature and the laws of God people, making it peaceful for them to live their lives, and those that are just the opposite, to liberate them. That was the plan. That's why the justification, I guess, or the reason behind why the devastating consequences of a war were wanted by Krishna. And Arjuna, he wanted Arjuna to go beyond his selfishness, high-sounding, moralistic-sounding reasons for not going forward.
Wasn't he aware?
The higher purpose of what the creation of this material world is for, and the mission of human life. Go ahead.
Wasn't Arjuna? I find that I wouldn't have any trouble if I speak to Krishna and he tells me we have to go to war, because I realized as I was told the stories that they were really very bad. I mean, there was all kinds of, lowly things that were happening there, and there will be no resistance in me to go to war. I don't know why Arjuna had this resistance to go to war. I mean, I can understand his affections, but then, people change over a period of time, and what was his grandfather at one point is now is an evil person that it really makes no sense to really protect him.
His grandfather went back to Godhead.
Okay, his uncle.
His teacher went back to Godhead. There were other lessons, and I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's your call. Should I just continue on this line, or do we invite other discussion topics, or what do we do?
Maharaj, well, interestingly, just now I was informed that someone who's watching this, listening via YouTube to this discussion has asked to pose a question. Shall I recite it? It seems like a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the steps one should take before reaching the conclusion at the time of perplexity? Actually, I don't understand it.
I understand the question. So,
Okay, good.
you know,
And
Robert
this is by
Frost.
Satyavrata, I'm sorry.
Okay. From high school English, Robert Frost poem, two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Sorry I could not travel both. You know that little poem? You didn't learn that one, huh? There's some college kids in the room. They're nodding. Yeah. So we have to make decisions, and sometimes you have to go left or right. You can't just stand there at the fork in the road. I mean, you can pause until you get a clear sense of is left better or is right better, but at some point in time you have to go left or right. And so what his question is, what are the steps that you take before you make the decision, left or right? And I think that's what the question is. Which path is going to take me to Krishna? Maybe both paths will take you to Krishna, the left and the right path. But of the two paths to Krishna, left and right, what's best or better than when we're making choices on the path of our spiritual journey? What are the things that we should do? So it's a very simple sequence. Pause or go to a mode of goodness space. And that is to say, not with attachment for, what do I want? What seems pleasing to me? Or what does my intelligence say? That's like all I do is my intelligence says, and then I choose and I go. But what's going to maximize Krishna being pleased? And then there's another important consideration when I'm making choices: who may be impacted negatively by a particular choice, and how can I make the choice that needs to be made and do it in such a way that it minimizes that negative impact. I mean, a classic from the Bhagavatam is the difficult decision that Arjuna had to make when Ashwatthama had killed the sleeping sons of Draupadi, and he captured Ashwatthama because he had taken a vow to Draupadi: when you do the funeral ceremony for your 5 sons, you can stand on his head as you're pouring oblations into the sacrificial fire, the funeral pyre. So he captured Ashwatthama. He had one hand on his hair, the other hand on his sword, is ready to chop his head off. And Draupadi said, don't kill him. And his elder brother, who Arjuna would never go against, his elder brother said, don't kill him. And of course, Bhima said, kill him. And Krishna said, go ahead and kill him. So now, do I kill him or do I not kill him? And there's more details, but Krishna gave him the intelligence how to not kill him and kill him. That is, he cut off his hair and the jewel on the top of his head and then sent him away disgraced. So he was killed and not killed because he had just murdered 5 sleeping children. That's punishable. And that was the punishment. The explanation given by Srila Prabhupada is Krishna wanted to show how exalted was Arjuna, that Arjuna understood Krishna's intention, even without Krishna saying it. He was that intimately connected with Krishna. So situations in our lives are generally not so drastic, like kill or not kill. But we have to make decisions about things. Like what we're doing right now, when the coronavirus hit, what are you going to do with your 26-second Avenue program? And so, not too difficult, you decide to do this. And how long is it going to last? That depends on lots of things, but at some point you're going to start having your gatherings at 26 again, which will be much nicer than Zoom calls. But there's going to be factors to consider before you do that. And so what's going to be pleasing to Krishna, and whatever the situation is, who, if I make a decision that goes in this direction, who might be unexpectedly negatively impacted by the decision, and how can I minimize that negative impact of the decision? That's do the right thing in the right way kind of consideration. So then you turn to Krishna for intelligence. You consult wise people who you have confidence in, and they're experienced, and they're wishing well for you, and they're wishing well for Krishna being pleased also. And you consider those things, and then you make some decision. And be ready, if you're still uncertain, like not really certain about the decision, be ready if somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, excuse me, Prabhu, but I'm not sure you made the right decision. Would you like to reconsider on the following basis, this and this and this? So it's not easy. Life decisions are not easy to make, but those are some of the steps, because that was the question.
Someone else might have a question. Maybe you, Lopritzi, you might have had a question. Okay, someone informed me. Carmen Gloria, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you very much for a very enlightening discussion. Given you're saying that the ultimate goal of this battle is liberation, and everything comes from Krishna, he's the supreme creator. I think what Arjuna is really facing is surrendering to the will of Krishna, and he's getting into his own analysis of the situation. But parallel to what you're saying, the situation we're living now with the coronavirus, I can't help thinking to which extent the devastation and death and what we're going through could be viewed as a liberation for all those souls and for stopping certain behaviors that, especially with regard to nature, that have got to a point that needs to be stopped. So that's my question to you. Could we say that given this comes from the Creator, because everything comes from Him, could we see this as a liberation? And so that gives a more understanding, and it makes it perhaps easier to go through, to endure.
Well, two things. The persons on the Kurukshetra battle were liberated because Krishna was on the Kurukshetra battle with them. And they were seeing Krishna as they were leaving their bodies. And so that was the basis of their liberation. Now, the coronavirus situation is very, very different. It's not that the persons who contract it or become infected with that virus and suffer and even recover or die, but it's not that they're seeing Krishna while they're in that situation. There's a karmic lesson for the world concerning what principles we live our life by. And because of living our life by principles that are nasty, then there's nasty outcome. And we, the world, human population, are reaping the fruits of a nasty lifestyle with nasty modes of nature and nasty decisions. But many people are not going to learn that lesson. Nonetheless, the consequence of improper conduct is there for the world. Now, some people will understand that and make some lifestyle changes. Some people won't. So it's not a one-to-one correspondence of coronavirus isolation and liberation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
But there is kind of a connection, but not a direct correlation.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's right. I'm fine if we end a little early because I have another class in 15 minutes. So if there's other questions, I'm game. And if not, I'll bow out and let you do what you do when you have the last 15 minutes of your time together.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, I have a like a clarification come question, I would say. The clarification would be like, what is exactly Karma Yoga? Does it mean that working with renunciation, and especially the explanation that you gave of renunciation means knowing whom everything belongs and offering the results to him?
Yes.
And therefore, now my question to that would be like, then how does Sakama Karma Yoga come under Karma Yoga? Because Sakama means you are aspiring or desiring some results, but it's also a kind of devotion. So I don't understand. It's like little.
Well,
unclear to me.
it very good question. It's a recognition of my stage of here's my understanding is up there and my position isn't there yet. That is, I understand that everything belongs to Krishna and everything should be offered to Krishna. But my consciousness is still, I have some expectation. So I give the fruits with an expectation. And as purification comes, then I give the fruits without expectation. That's Nishkam Karma Yoga. It's a statement of lower and a more elevated stage of consciousness that gets closer to realization of what I know, then brings me to a position of where my consciousness is. It's a means of purification. Sakama is the beginning, and Nishkama is the more mature stage of consciousness.
So what does the expectation mean? Is it not the result of your activity? Is it something else from
Yes,
that?
I'm still, Sakama means I'm an enjoyer. I'm doing something for Krishna and I expect something back from Krishna.
Okay.
And that's my relationship with Krishna. It's a business relationship. I want liberation from the bondage of my work, and so I'm offering the fruit of my work to Krishna, and I have some expectation from Krishna, who I'm offering the fruit of my work to. And it's less elevated than one who has no expectation in exchange for offering the fruits of my work to Krishna.
So is Krishna still in the center for a Sakama Karma Yogi?
Well, it's the sky is cloudy.
Okay.
Not a clear sky. Got it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to sign off and move on to my next service. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Looking forward to Mr. Corona taking a vacation and going somewhere else.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much, Romapada Swami. All right, Hare Krishna.
There you go.
Okay, so